gente.
Hola.
Welcome to the Adrian and Brenda Show.
Part 2.
Season 1, Episode 2. So, what's on tap for this training you got coming up?
So this weekend training, you guys will be getting your hands on a new BD IO drill. And that's just for you guys to give us some feedback. What do you think? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? So we really appreciate any feedback that you give us. The other thing that you'll be seeing is EMS One Academy will be sending out videos on APS and CPS referrals. We have been seeing a lot about those, and people are just not knowing what documentation needs to be presented. And so John C has actually done a great video and has done an outline on from the beginning to the end, and even follow-up questions that they may call you and ask you, so you guys can be ready for that. So that's really good. It's about 14 minutes, so it's not a lot of your time. The other thing, remembering,
Thanks, Chauncey, for that. When's it due?
It's due at the end of the month. Yeah,
Right,
so y'all
you got a couple weeks to get it.
Yeah, y'all will have plenty of time. The other thing is INTs. If you guys are going to UNC Grace, remember to be using their fancy INT setup. People are liking them. We have asked to see if maybe we can get some on the trucks, but each truck should have 2 IV start kits for UNC. So if you don't have any, get with your captain and he should know where they're at.
And then for resupply, when you go into the ER, just ask one of the nurses. They'll show you where you can grab them at. They've got them already in the kits with some lab draw supplies in them. If you're not familiar with them, we've sent out a couple of YouTube links on the last weekly update, so pull those up and make sure that you kind of get your hands on them and take a look at them. Super similar to what we're already using, just a little bit more convenient. Do make sure that we're using those for Grace patients and not routinely on patients that aren't going to Grace, just to be courteous to their supplies. On that note, we can segue into blood cultures, just talking through that. So blood cultures are looking great in the month of March. All of our contamination rates look really good. No contamination rates, or no contamination in March, which was great. So keep up that good work. In April, we should, at the 5th day of May, we will have the April contamination rates back. And so we'll review those. That is when we will talk to Grace about moving forward with them accepting blood cultures. And to reiterate with Grace, the main reason that they aren't accepting our cultures is because twofold. Number one, they have to get their own contamination rates in order. So they were having some struggles there. And also they're changing to Epic for their charting system. And so they've got to figure out how they're going to essentially differentiate our blood cultures so that we're not mixed in or lumped into their contamination rates. So we'll continue with that process, and hopefully that'll get going. You want to hit, I think there's some confusion on the 10 ml syringe, and do you have to have it or do you not?
Yeah, so a lot of people are saying, we actually got feedback from HCA after we had done our training that the 10 is not necessarily required. You guys only have to do a 20. Now, some people saying that they do like it because they can do a rainbow, they can do blood draws and all that stuff. So that's completely fine, but just keep in mind that it's not necessarily, as long as you keep your blood cultures bottle in an upright position, and when you connect that transfer device onto the syringe, making sure that it's always completely straight up. So if there is any air bubbles, it will go to the top of the syringe and it will not go into the blood culture itself.
Perfect. So not required. If you want it, great. If you don't want it, fine. If you're having trouble getting blood and you just want to do the 20, but you know the name of the game, just make sure you're not getting air into the bottle that doesn't like air. Provider signatures in ESO, you saw probably that that's turned on. So now if Brenda and I run a call together, you'll see that both provider signatures are required. It's totally acceptable at the start of the shift if I say, hey Brenda, can I sign your name to my charts today?
Go ahead.
Totally realistic. I don't expect you to make your partner open up the chart and sign their name. The reason for that is if I'm doing procedures in Brenda's chart and she's the author, it just makes everything really clean from a liability standpoint to make sure that both signatures are on there. So just a tiny little housekeeping item, and it shouldn't really impact you guys except one more little red thing at the end when you click the checks.
Now on the flip side, if you do have that new medic that you're riding along, or it's just field training, having that extra person look over the chart and then signing it just gives you more validation that you have looked at over that chart, because we are missing some stuff. But
Valid point.
Yep.
Valid point. QM looks really good.
Yeah.
I think the only thing we're really sending back for trend-wise is EKG interpretation. So if you put on a 3 lead or a 12 lead, make sure you're noting that interpretation on at least one of those. Also, if you have GCS on your first and last vital sign at a minimum, that's a good thing to trend, or if you have any changes in GCS. But everything's looking great on QM, so keep that up. Masks, obviously everyone saw the mask guidance come out. Had a couple questions. One is, does vaccination status matter? And it does not. So that applies to all employees across the board. Masks are optional for patient-facing care. If you have concerns about a patient being symptomatic or having COVID or any other communicable disease, follow PPE guidance accordingly. Obviously, my main concern is don't forget when you're walking into a facility like Rose Hill or Autumn Care or the hospital that we are putting that on. I think best practice would be to have an N95 and a surgical mask in your pocket, so you could just snag that out and put it on if needed. Obviously, fingers crossed that continues to be the case. We are still watching trends to make sure that we're keeping you guys as safe as possible, while also maintaining, keeping you guys comfortable and keeping morale up. So things keep looking up, and we get more and more excited to be out of COVID and on to regular EMS life as we go. And last thing I have is Salamander ID badge. You saw that email come out. If you haven't clicked the link and filled it out, please do. Put all your information. Radio numbers, doesn't matter if you put that in there, because we're using the most updated radio number document that we've got. So we'll be continuing to work on those, and thanks to Angie for working on those. Anything else?
Nope. Stay
Awesome.
tuned for episode 3.
Episode 3, Brendan Adrian Show. Have a nice day.